Brijesh Pandey, and you are watching To The Point. And in To The Point, today we are going to discuss Meghalaya. Hundreds of people on Monday gathered in front of Conrad Sangma's office demanding Tura to be declared the winter capital of Meghalaya. The protesters were also demanding a revision in a 51-year-old reservation policy. These were the demands they had for the administration, the government headed by Conrad Sangma. The administration was taken by surprise. The melee left 5 security persons injured. What is the 51-year-old policy? Why do they want Tura to be declared the capital, the winter capital? But first, listen to Conrad Sangma that why Meghalaya suddenly is in so much of news.
The incident that took place today in Tura, outside the CM Secretariat and the Commissioner of Division's office, is indeed very, very unfortunate. We had discussed with one or two of the groups and NGOs who had concerns and were having fasting for the last many days. And while discussions were going on, we had already agreed on finally meeting in Shillong and discussing this further with all different stakeholders, because the concerns that they have are affecting many communities and affecting the overall state as a whole, and hence these kind of decisions require more consultation. And in the meantime, of course, other development aspects and other works that we have initiated, those would continue at a fast pace, and those matters were discussed. And more or less, these NGOs who had these concerns were more or less satisfied. And I also would like to stress that majority of the stakeholders, civil society and the NGOs were not part of this fasting that took place. There were just 2 organizations or maximum 3 organizations that were in this, but 90% of the organizations were not part of this. So even then, I felt it appropriate, and I've always believed that dialogue is important, and hence I made it a point to meet them, and that was what was decided. And so while we discussed everything, after the discussion was almost over, we heard some agitation and some sloganing from outside, and I asked some of the people to go and speak to the people and to their people and tell them to control and not to create any kind of scene out here. But once the leaders, the NGOs leaders had gone outside to talk to these people, they came back to tell us that they have no idea who these people are. They have never seen them here before. For the last 14 days since they have been here sitting and having this fasting, they didn't see these people, and today for the first time they've come, and some of them even looked intoxicated and not really in the correct senses in some sense. And this was said not by me but by the NGO leaders themselves. And then after that, the NGO leaders themselves then had to come into the building, and they could not leave from here themselves. And even now they are in one of the rooms. They are not able to go because they are also worried, and it seems that these people who are there are people who are not part of their organization. So we have a full video recording and details of all the people who have instigated, and definitely as per law, necessary action will be taken from the police side. And also, as I said, we had asked the organizations to come and meet us, but it is sad that while we took the initiative to come and speak to them and try to find a resolution to this, this is the kind of unexpected situation that has unfolded. But nonetheless, the police has controlled the situation. We had some incidents where, because of the store pelting, without any instigation from the police, almost close to 5 police personnel were quite seriously injured, and few other minor injuries also were there. And from my side, I have decided that I'll be giving 50,000 rupees as medical allowance to each one of them from my CMSG scheme. All those who are injured, the police who are injured, and whatever the medical expenditures are there will be completely borne by the government. At the same time, as I said, we condemn this kind of an action, and this is not something that Garo Hills has experienced, and whatever we have seen seems to be another plan by some other individuals. As I said, even the NGOs who are in this have already said that they are not part of this, and they are not aware of the individuals who have been involved. And as I said, we have recordings, so accordingly police will take action.
मिज़ोरम में जो मेटीज़ हैं उनको निकाला जा रहा है. आसाम में और मणिपुरी स्टूडेंट्स एसोसिएशन ने कहा है मिज़ोरम के जो बच्चे वहाँ पे पढ़ रहे हैं कि आप यहाँ से निकलिए. और आप मेघालय में आप ये घटना देख रहे हैं, पूरे नॉर्थ ईस्ट में आग लगाने का काम. डबल इंजन की सरकार लाएंगे, डबल इंजन की सरकार आएंगे, डबल द ग्रोथ होगी, डबल द विकास होगा. इनका सिर्फ एक ही विकास है, कैसे लोगों को लड़ाते रहें, कैसे हिंसक घटनाएं फैलाते रहें, किसी तरीके की अकाउंटेबिलिटी ना हो और अपने वोट बटोरते रहें.
In studio, I am joined by my input editor Brijesh Pandey, and I am also joined by Professor Prasanajit Biswas, Professor of Philosophy, Northeastern Hill University. Before I go to Prasanajit ji, there is a churn in Northeast, Brijesh. You have talks of greater Nagalim, greater Mizoram. You have this churn in Assam in context of immigration. Now you have a churn in the Khasi and the Garo areas. Khaso, Gari, Jaintia, that's how you define Meghalaya. Now you have again a churn on the reservation issues. The original problem was of the Meiteis wanting to be part of the scheduled tribe issues. Tura, the capital, the winter capital. What do you make of it? Suddenly, the pot is on boil.
Well, I think, Kartikeya, I won't call it sudden. The violence is sudden, yes, but the demand has been a long-standing one. And the biggest problem is that, most of these demand, which keeps the pot simmering. We react only when they explode. We react when something big happens. But the demand for a winter capital has been there for a long time. And I think, the lopsided development which we have witnessed in most of these hill states and all is also a big reason behind that demand. Because people believe that, once you have a particular area declared as a summer capital, winter capital, then automatically, the fact that it has become a capital, there's a lot of development, there's a lot of action on the ground. It makes your area more accessible. It provides your area with more benefits and all. And that is the reason why, there has been this demand. And violence which exploded out, I think, some sort of celestial movement is definitely not all right as far as Northeast is concerned. Because we have been in this profession for such a long time, Kartikeya. I don't even remember when was the last time you have seen a series of bad news as far as Northeast is concerned.
For example, Nepal has, for example, Assam has been in news because of the polygamy issue, as if polygamy is the aspect related to common civil code. Then we understand there's almost a civil war like situation in Manipur. You have Zoram Thangas hardening his stand because of elections are going to take place in his state.
Absolutely.
And then you have this issue of Tripura, in which the new politician Pradyut, he is demanding for a wider, greater and more deeper representation for the tribals. Because, you have a lot of Bengalis who are settled there. Then you have this issue of indigenous tribal forum, MIM, TF, which says that a larger proportion of seats should be given to them when it comes to the government jobs, and they want more say and representation. So in a way, this churn is about, I feel, reducing pie and more mouths to feed. Prasanajit, can you just take us through, before you take any of our question, why this issue of Tura that has come up? And then we'll talk of 1972 reservation policy of the Meghalaya government, which has become so contentious. But for all our viewers who are outside Meghalaya, can you just tell us why is this demand for Tura as the winter capital of Meghalaya?
Yes, I mean, this demand is because, during winter, Shillong being a colder place, and also Shillong becoming quite a bit vacant because of the excessive cold wave that happens in Shillong. So slightly moderately temperatured place like Tura actually becomes a kind of a pleasant place to visit. That, of course, is the climactic kind of a situation in Meghalaya. Tura is relatively hotter and Shillong is much, much cooler. And during winter, it becomes shiveringly cold. It can go down up to 1 degree or 2 degrees, even sometimes in the minus. So it becomes very difficult to run the affairs of the state, only being in Shillong. That is, of course, a difficulty. The other part is that the question of equitable representation between two major tribal groups, let's say Garos on the one side of the state of Meghalaya and Khasi Jaintias on the other side of the state of Meghalaya. So Shillong is on the side of the Khasis and Jaintias, though there are Garo people who are inhabitants of East Khasi Hills and the Khasi Hills at large, or in Jaintia Hills as well. But perceivably, when capital is in Shillong, the area is a Khasi Jaintia area. It's not the home area or the home turf of the Garos. So Garos want equitable representation, and therefore certain Garo organizations, those who voiced the concern of the Garo community, they came up and they demanded that what is wrong in having Tura as the winter capital of the state of Meghalaya. This is to establish greater equity, perceivably greater equitable share of resources and power, and also distribution of developmental packages as much as it happens in Khasi Jaintia Hills, to that proportion in Garo Hills. Now these things are perceived in a certain way, a perception of relative deprivation that is there among the Garo community, and therefore this demand for winter capital in Tura. So this is how you have to look at it in a certain way. Yeah.
And what about the reservation policy? You had 40% for the Khasis, 40%, yes, if I am not wrong, for the Garos. Then you had 15% for other tribes, and then you had the 5%. So 40, 40, 15, 5. And now there is a group which says that the Khasis are more than the Garos. Khasis are like somewhere around 14.2%, and Garos are like 8.2. That's the difference. So it should be revisited. Is it possible to revisit? And why has this demand come, Professor?
This demand has come once again because there is some backlog of vacancies that have not been filled up in various departments for, let's say, 5-6 years. Now there is backlog vacancy, and also Meghalaya High Court passed a judgment saying that unless roster system is followed, no vacancy of the state government should be filled up. So every post has to be marked according to the roster, reserved for whom or unreserved. That kind of marking and distribution has to be done in government jobs and services. Now what has happened is that Khasi Jaintia are two distinct communities or tribes.
Okay, there's a bit of an audio problem. So, Professor, are you back with us? Okay, I think the professor is not back with us. But the fact that they could beat so many people, I think I was pretty surprised.
Well, Kartikeya, we are surprised, but the fact is that there's always churning on the ground, and that's the reason which was as the professor was saying, that there is a demand for equitable representation. And if you look at the north, if you look at North India, UP, Bihar, there's a massive discontent over the caste census. They say that boss, jiski jitni, the saying goes,
hissedari, uski utni bhagedari.
And why do you think any place is going to be less different than that? So the problem is that
I think that's a very good line you have said. Professor, did you hear what Brijesh said?
Yes, I have heard.
You heard, this is what is said in North India. Jiski jitni hissedari, uski utni bhagedari.
Absolutely, in terms of population division and percentage. But Meghalaya being a special kind of a state under 6th schedule, where you have this Khasi Hills, Jaintia Hills and Garo Hills all under 6th schedule. Therefore, the reservation connects to the scheduled areas. And Khasi Jaintias are 40%, Garos are 40%. Now, there are backlog vacancies. The question is, to which level of the past, since past this backlog exists, to which year in the past one should count this backlog form? That is the question. So one interpretation is that if it is counted from, let's say, remote past, from 80s, then you see someone will get more and some others will get less in terms of reservation. So therefore, there's a difference of opinion. I won't say conflict. There is a kind of a tug of war between Khasi Jaintia aspiration and Garo aspiration. As a result, the debate is still not resolved. Which year should be the cutoff year for counting the backlog vacancies? Now, on that, state government is supposed to constitute an expert committee, and then the expert committee's opinion will be debated in the assembly, and then the decision will be taken by the government of the day. On that, there was a huge agitation by public and the opposition party. So therefore, now it's a settled position that government has to work out an equitable and acceptable formula of how many jobs will be reserved for which community without disturbing the main framework of the reservation policy. So that's the resolution, and that has sort of resolved the kind of tension that at one point of time was brewing in Meghalaya. And people are waiting for the results that government is supposed to now show by constituting the expert committee and by coming to a settled position about it, which has not happened so far. It is expected that
what I feel,
Minister will come to that position.
What I feel is that the pie in context of, I was part of a track 2, and the gentleman had served as secretary with the Union of Government of India, looking after the development of Northeast. So, and he was part of the Kaladan project. I really don't want to name him here. But he said that, when we were talking about the Manipur issue, he said, you just have to understand, you just got to increase the pie. And he gave example of Mizoram. And he gave example of Assam. He said, you just got to increase the pie. You just got to ensure that the factories come up. You just got to ensure that the people have more jobs. And you just got to ensure that they are not dependent on the largest of the state. Do you think that the problem of the Meghalaya is that everyone is now focused on the largest of the state? Even in Manipur, the whole identity issue is on the largest of the court. The court tells us you are a scheduled tribe and you get all the benefits of the state. Isn't that becoming a problem in Northeast, even larger India? But I'm contextualizing my conversation with you in the context of the northeastern states.
But every state is very different in Northeast, you see. In Tripura, it is of one kind. It cannot be straight-jacketed. In Manipur, it is one kind. In Meghalaya, it is one kind. In Meghalaya, it is more a dialogue and a kind of attempt to resolve the internal differences. In case of Manipur, the internal differences are too strong. It pertains to distribution of land. It also pertains to certain other structural injustice. One side has 40 MLAs and 10% land. The other side has 20 MLAs, and being a kind of a community which is always in movement, tribal communities, who have to go for slash and burn cultivation or recycling of the cultivable land. So therefore, they require more land. They are a land-based economy entirely. So this kind of structural asymmetry is there in Manipur. And that has acted as the root cause of this problem. But more than the root cause, the immediate cause of conflagration is something. And the kind of orchestration and engineering that has happened, which we have talked about, is how the conflict became bigger in case of Manipur. In case of Assam, it's not just that the pie and largesse have been increased, but in Assam, there is a better inter-community understanding. You see, Assamese society is an example of syncretism. Shankar Deva and Ajahn Peer have built it up together in terms of Neo-Vaishnavism and also in terms of a form of Islam which is more syncretic. And in the Namghar, in the olden days, you have places for prayer by the Muslims and places of prayer by the Hindus. And both are praying to the formless God, as Shankardeva called professors, or as Ajahn Peer professors. Both are using the same language, same invocation, and praying at two different places. So you can see this very, very nice way in which the communities have come together in case of Assam. But Assam has undergone a different kind of evolution. You have tribal communities and non-tribal communities. You have Barak Valley and Brahmaputra Valley. So Assam has a very different dynamics, and the dynamics is slightly better managed than other hill states because communities are cooperative at this point of time in Assam, and that cooperation has not broken down in case of Assam. So Assam presents a much better picture than any other northeastern states. So therefore, you can see that specificity of angularities and specific reasons of conflict are different in case of different states.
Okay.
So you cannot straight jacket the whole thing.
Sometimes violence erupt because of the politics of exclusivity. You push yourself to be exclusive and the violence erupts. Often we have seen in Europe and even this part of India, the violence has also erupted because of an attempt to create a larger inclusivity, or you may use the word uniformity. So, Professor, put it in perspective for us. Is there a common thread we are witnessing all over Northeast? It's, I think, 82 days now. Tomorrow will be the 83rd day. Is there something happening, a slow churn?
Yes, I mean, what you were trying to smell from here, there is something like a churn on the ground. But which way it is going is not kind of predictable. You cannot, beforehand say what is going to happen tomorrow. But what can be clearly seen is an absence of peace process in case of Manipur. You can see lack of initiative on the part of the governments, elected governments. You can see that elected representatives are not coming together and communities are broken apart. Now this situation needs to be modified and transformed into a situation which is more democratic and more justiciable. And that's not happening so easily in case of Manipur. Therefore, every day something or the other is happening. Suspicions are brewing. And you can see people are trying to protect themselves in some way or the other. And in the course of that, there is a lot of targeting as well and stereotyping that's happening. So the ground reality is still very fragile and it needs a kind of a repairment of human relations. It requires a very good kind of relief and rehabilitation work. It requires a certain kind of care. And it requires restoration of trust, restoration of mutuality, restoration of some kind of a inter-community dialogue and connection in the case of Manipur. Now, unless all these things happen, we don't see much of a change in the ground. Yeah.
So can I say, I think it's a little bit of a stereotype you must have heard everywhere. Is Conrad in command?
Yes, you can put it that way. That's not a problem. But, I would go a little step further. I would say that stereotypes are built up in an institutional manner. Calling an entire community as illegal immigrant, calling them as narco-terrorists, or giving them a derogatory name, something that is prevalent across Northeast India in distinguishing between an insider and the outsider. I don't want to mention those names because that really doesn't give me enough strength to build up an argument. But besides all that, there is also a sense of tolerance, a sense of acceptance, and a sense of coexistence that keeps the people together. And that's the common thread. Keeping people together is the common thread, not where thread is broken. That's something like a discontinuity in the continuum through which people live together here in Northeast for centuries. And that kind of disturbance, disruption happens because of many internal and external reasons. I don't want to promote a conspiracy theory, but at the same time, you can see certain manifest factors. One of the factors is that there is complete absence of any intermediate dialogue, any intermediary or any interlocutor who can call people together. That's completely absent at this point. You can also see a kind of an insecurity that is continually being built up morning, evening, at night time, it becomes even more insecure. So you can see how insecurity is playing throughout the day. That is something which
Okay.
is palpable. And
Okay. Okay. So, you know, my question to you was Conrad in command. Let's listen to Conrad Sangma once again. Let's play out the bite.
Sure.
The incident that took place today in Tura, outside the CM Secretariat and the Commissioner of Division's office, is indeed very, very unfortunate. We had discussed with one or two of the groups and NGOs who had concerns and were having fasting for the last many, many days. And while discussions were going on, we had already agreed on finally meeting in Shillong and discussing this further with all different stakeholders, because the concerns that they have are affecting many communities and affecting the overall state as a whole, and hence these kind of decisions require more consultation. And in the meantime, of course, other development aspects and other works that we have initiated, those would continue at a fast pace, and those matters were discussed. And more or less, these NGOs who had these concerns were more or less satisfied. And I also would like to stress that majority of the stakeholders, civil society and the NGOs were not part of this fasting that took place. There were just 2 organizations or maximum 3 organizations that were in this, but 90% of the organizations were not part of this. So even then, I felt it appropriate, and I've always believed that dialogue is important, and hence I made it a point to meet them. And that was what was decided. And so while we discussed everything, after the discussion was almost over, we heard some agitation and some sloganing from outside. And I asked some of the people to go and speak to the people and to their people and tell them to control and not to create any kind of scene out here. But once the leaders, the NGOs leaders had gone outside to talk to these people, they came back to tell us that they have no idea who these people are. They have never seen them here before. For the last 14 days since they have been here sitting and having this fasting, they didn't see these people, and today for the first time they've come, and some of them even looked intoxicated and not really in the correct senses in some sense. And this was said not by me but by the NGO leaders themselves. And then after that, the NGO leaders themselves then had to come into the building, and they could not leave from here themselves. And even now they are in one of the rooms. They are not able to go because they are also worried, and it seems that these people who are there are people who are not part of their organization. So we have a full video recording and details of all the people who have instigated, and definitely as per law necessary action will be taken from the police side. And also, as I said, we had asked the organizations to come and meet us, but it is sad that while we took the initiative to come and speak to them and try to find a resolution to this, this is the kind of unexpected situation that has unfolded. But nonetheless, the police has controlled the situation. We had some incidents where because of the store pelting, without any instigation from the police, almost close to 5 police personnel were quite seriously injured, and few other minor injuries also were there. And from my side, I have decided that I'll be giving 50,000 rupees as medical allowance to each one of them from my CMSG scheme. All those who are injured, the police who are injured, and whatever the medical expenditures are there will be completely borne by the government. At the same time, as I said, we condemn this kind of an action, and this is not something that Garo Hills has experienced, and whatever we have seen seems to be another plan by some other individuals. As I said, even the NGOs who are in this have already said that they are not part of this, and they are not aware of the individuals who have been involved. And as I said, we have recordings, so accordingly police will take action.
A very quick take, Brijesh. Do you think that BJP is in a bit of a problem? Everything seems to be slightly on edge in Northeast, in Manipur, in Mizoram, in Tripura. They have the government, but the opposition has become stronger. Even Conrad Sangma, the positions they are taking on certain issues are strong political positions.
I think, they are in a bit of a bother in the state of Manipur, but not beyond that. I don't see any problem BJP is going to face as far as Tripura is concerned, or nor in Meghalaya. The only place where they're in a spot of bother is the state of Manipur.
Okay, so this is all in To The Point, and in To The Point today we discussed. Thank you so much, Professor Prasanjit, for being with us from Shillong on this issue, and actually very neatly deciphering for us as to why this reservation issue has become big, and why Tura and why not Shillong. And the whole purpose of News9, and especially our program, is to put Northeast in the political mainstream of Indian newscape. Thank you all of you. And on the other side of the news, you have another riveting discussion waiting for you.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. Streaming now.
A very warm welcome. You're watching News9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi. Joining me here in the studio is my colleague Pankaj Mishra, and the Prime Minister's recent East India jibe at the INDIA coalition. That particular alliance, that is something that we're going to be looking at over the next couple of minutes. It's a complete war of words, ladies and gentlemen, over the naming of the opposition parties' alliance as India. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi strongly criticized the opposition for the ongoing commotion in the parliament regarding the Manipur issue. He took a swipe at the newly formed alliance, the INDIA, Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance, stating that he had never witnessed such a quote-unquote directionless opposition. This alliance comprises 26 parties, just to refresh the memories of all the viewers, 26 opposition parties that form the alliance INDIA India, and has been formed in preparation for the 2024 general elections. Now, during a BJP parliamentary party meeting, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed his views, stating that simply using the word India would not suffice, as historical references like the East India Company and the name Indian Mujahideen have also been used in the past. Union Minister Prahlad Joshi reported that Prime Minister Narendra Modi remarked on the opposition being a disheartened and lacking direction opposition. He observed that their behavior indicated a willingness to remain in the opposition for an extended period of time. We have some reactions, some bites from across the political spectrum. Let's first play those out, and then we'll open this for more.
देखिए, हम मोदी साहब को सदन में आके मणिपुर पे आप वहां के स्थिति पे बोलिए, हम इंसिस्ट कर रहे हैं, लेकिन वो अपने पार्टी में ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी की बात करते हैं। अरे भाई, मणिपुर पे बात करो। ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का अगर बात करना है, उसमें कौन किस की पात्र क्या है, उस वक्त के हिंदू महासभा का पात्र क्या था, उस वक्त गोलवलकर गुरुजी का कहना क्या था, सावरकर जी का कहना क्या था, और उस वक्त के ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी में नौकरी में घुसने वाले